What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Triple H podcast. And I emphasize that welcome back because it has been a minute. Myself and Jake Mike here, the original Happy Hour Hoops duo, back to talk some hoops in the summertime. In a little over a month, I would say, since our last episode, maybe even closer to two. But Jake, we're back, and tell the people how excited you are midsummer to be talking hoops once again.
It has been way too long. I took a what did I think it's been it's almost been 7 weeks since I've been on a Happy Hour Hoops podcast, and we haven't had too many of them in there. So thank you. First of all, thank you for you and Steve for holding it down and keeping stuff pumping out during the dog days of summer as I took a break from everything, was not doing anything train wreck sports, but now we are getting back in the thick of everything. Football season,
Yes.
basketball season, hockey season, everything's coming up. And we need to get back locked in on our hoops. Team USA starts up in about a week, which is really it's going to be really fun. It's basically a Team USA B team, but it's going to be a lot of fun basketball. That game against Spain the other day, it's just a casual Sunday afternoon. I did not expect to be glued to my couch for the second half of this exhibition between Spain and Team USA. But here I was like, we gotta get back locked in. So it's great to be here. We miss Steve, who is he's in the process of moving, which you are also. This is the thing. We're in such everything about the Happy Hour Hoops podcast is transitioning right now. So we're gonna look a lot different for this year. But we had to come in for the people still here on August 16th. So we're about 2 months out. That's crazy.
The NBA is a never-ending circle because just when you think you have a while until the next season starts, like you just said, we're only 2 weeks out from kind of getting back into legit basketball talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is crazy. You mentioned it. Me and Steve both kind of moving into new places. This may be the last time you see me record from my childhood bedroom. My mini hoop,
era.
Yeah, my mini hoop that's usually over my left shoulder is already gone. It is.
I didn't even realize that. That's so sad.
Yeah,
it does look kind of empty now.
It looks pretty bad up there. Twitter became X since the last time we recorded.
I think it still does. Oh no, it just says follow us. We don't have Twitter on there. I was gonna say we're gonna have to change the scroll. We're gonna have to do all this.
So you mentioned Team USA is under full swing. It was funny to see Jaylen Brunson just getting buckets on the TV in the middle of the summer. We're going to talk about all of that today. We got Team USA. We'll talk big contract extensions, Jaylen Brown, Anthony Davis. Talk a little Dame Lillard. We'll talk a little Kristaps Porzingis injury that just came across the desk yesterday or 2 days ago. But let's start where the drama's at, Jake, because this is a guy who, no matter what part of his contract he is in, no matter if he is in between teams, he's a polarizing guy all around the world because he's in China right now selling his new brand of wine. Oh yeah, he's having a blast. I'm starting to wonder I'm starting to wonder how actually bothered he is by this whole contract situation and Philadelphia situation, but that is exactly who we're talking about. We're talking about Mr. James Harden. We're talking about the Philadelphia 76ers and all the drama that entails, because Harden thought he was getting a max deal is the newest rumor, and Daryl Morey apparently had other plans. Yes. I guess just knowing what you know right now, Jake, what are your initial thoughts on this?
Well, I feel like we've been monitoring this, and this is why we need to, and this is on me, hand up moment on me, because I will be doing this more often, going back and finding these clips of how many times we've talked about James Harden since Christmas, since that report came out about Houston, and just been like, who knows what's going to happen here? Like, this man is unhinged. You never can trust anything, like, with what he wants to do, where he wants to go. There's all these rumors swirling about Houston. Why would he want to go to Houston? All these things. And clearly it was a kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like a safety net, like an umbrella for him. Houston was, because supposedly, if you're following the reporting, there was a deal in place, like you were mentioning, whether it was a wink handshake behind closed door, whatever him and Harden, Daryl Morey is him in this scenario, had come up with. They had some kind of agreement, and Harden believes that Daryl Morey turned his back on there. Now, here's the first question, Dunny. Isn't this it's kind of just a smart basketball move, right? Like, you don't want to give James Harden $60 billion a year right now, do you?
No. See, I hold that same logic, and it's basically the simple part of it is just like it comes down to who is lying. But the shitty part for Harden is if there was nothing contractual, it doesn't really matter if Morey was lying, because that could very well be the case. That's kind of where I lean right now, although I think you're right. I don't think Harden's deserving of that money, whether he was promised it or not. So it's basically Harden's word against Morey's word, but neither of their words really matter in this point unless there was pen to paper. And obviously there wasn't. Harden took a paycheck. He feels slighted because he thought he was going to be guaranteed something that he's not. Again, this is, the James Harden we've seen in the past, kind of just whining and pouting about until he gets to his preferred destination. It's just tough this time because it's like, if that is how it went down, it's hard to just call it whining and pouting. But Harden, 33 years old, has made a reputation kind of similar to this with multiple different teams. And now we're seeing it again. And we're seeing it at probably the worst possible time for the Philadelphia 76ers, because there's also reports coming out that Joel Embiid, reached out to Harden a couple different times this summer, tried to get him to stay. Harden says he has no interest. Joel Embiid taking processing out of his Twitter bio. He's taking Philadelphia out of his Twitter bio. Obviously that is always something cryptic that athletes, not just NBA athletes, but all athletes tend to do if they're.
It is a power move. Unfollow the team on socials.
Right. We've seen it all before. Starting with the eye emojis way back in the day, going from the changing your bio around. Sometimes there's substance there. A lot of the times there's not. What's real in this situation? Who knows? It's like what we just said. Who is lying, Morey or Harden? We don't know. Is Embiid actually upset? We don't know. I mean, he's probably a little upset. He's probably realizing, hey, the only other all-star caliber guy we had on our team, aside from Tyrese Maxey, who I think will get there, but needs some time to grow. I don't think just Maxey and Embiid is enough to get to the championship. I think Embiid probably is a little upset, whether it's at Morey, whether it's at Harden, whether, he doesn't care. He just wants a team assembled around him. I think that would be fair as well. So it's just it's an interesting time for this all to be coming out, and it's almost it might be too little too late. If Harden wants all these different options, I don't know how many options he has. I don't know how many teams are willing to give him a max. I don't know if any teams are willing to give him a max. So I think sticky situation for Philadelphia. I think maybe even a stickier situation for James Harden, the individual.
Yeah, I think that you're right about James Harden, the individual. The team that apparently he wants to go to is the Los Angeles Clippers. Whether they're going to give him a max contract, I don't know. They probably shouldn't. I mean, why would they? But who knows with what the Clippers, the Clippers side of this, they are building a new arena and they need stars there somehow. Whether that's old James Harden, old Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Russ, whatever it's going to be, they want to load it up with stars there. He's not worth the money from anybody. That's what it really comes down to. I think that's the main point of that. When it comes to Embiid, though, man, I wouldn't blame him if tomorrow he asked for a trade. Like, what he has put up with, how much shit in that organization, between his GM having burner accounts in 2018 to the whole Ben Simmons saga to getting so close to getting to the conference finals with that Jimmy Butler team, only for Jimmy to get traded in the offseason and them clearly to be like still close. And obviously they enjoyed each other's, time playing together and everything. He's taken a lot of lumps on the chin and wore that city on his back and proudly for a long time now, and also put up with a lot of bullshit at the start of his career to even get to this point that I wouldn't be. I think it's a matter of if or when, not if, for Joel Embiid at this point. And really, it comes down to who teams are. There are teams positions out there to go after a Joel Embiid, but that's the next thing I think you should be looking at if you're Philly is like, how can I maximize both these guys? Because what is your move? Even if Harden at this point, sure, you can say you're going to keep Harden. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we know he will just either show up huge or not show up at all. We've seen him do all these different, whatever tactic he's going to start pulling. And if he pulls, and even if he pulls up to training camp with whatever attitude he's going to have that he doesn't want to be there with, Joel's not going to want to put up with that shit either. Like, Embiid's not going. So it's just, imagine being Nick Nurse, also, head coach, potentially thinking about how explosive this situation could be. It just feels like there's no way to replace Harden if you get rid of him. So Joel's really looking at it like if he believes in Tyrese Maxey and then like whatever pieces they get back for Harden for maybe one more year. But then even if they don't win this year, like, and I don't think that they would be better than, they're not going to be better than the Bucks or the Celtics, no matter what kind of moves they can make before the year. I mean, better odds. If you think JoJo has another level to get to, sure. But the thing about Embiid is, how old is he now? He's about to be 30, 31.
Yeah, I think he's 31.
7'3" guy with foot problems and knee issues every year and back issues.
29. I'm sorry.
He's still about to be 30.
Yeah.
Knee issues, back issues, 7-footer, all this stuff. Like, if you are smart, and Daryl Morey's usually, he gets ahead of these things, like, this is when you cut bait. And so I'd be thinking about getting rid of him and getting him out of the East by saying, like, the Knicks are the one team that everybody keeps mentioning. And that's the one thing I think you can't do if you're Philly is feed your rival. Like, this can't be like a Miami trade or a New York trade. It needs to be like an Oklahoma City. Like, if they do something like that, that's the only thing that I can't defend is I'm okay if Morey decides that they should trade Embiid and trade Harden and blow it all up, but you got to move them out west and get them away from you. And because Joel, wherever he gets traded to, he's going to be on a revenge tour and just like I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Like a confirmation tour, like not confirmation, but just like, people are going to be like, oh, can he do it somewhere else? He's just going to be looking to prove a lot of points and even as an MVP coming off the season, if he got traded, I imagine that there's a streak that would come out in him. So I don't know. It's just Harden. This little part of Harden feels like it's just another domino in what's going to happen with the Embiid thing. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's the more interesting thing to me about James Harden. I don't care about kind of washed up James Harden as much as how much him leaving and what he's doing right now has the impact on the MVP, who clearly is not happy with what's going on right now either.
No, not happy at all. And you have to assume that, I'm sure the style of it will be a little different. It'll probably have a little more class behind it. And it's obviously will be more warranted, but you have to assume if, Philly doesn't make any moves to help themselves out next year and get better, like you mentioned, like there's not really many moves out there that they can make where you would definitively say, oh, this team's better than they were last year. I'm with you. I don't know if it's possible, just based off of the little moves they've made up until this point. And then two, if they don't make a deeper playoff push, or, it may be they might have to get to them. He's already put his life through crazy obstacles just to keep the city of Philadelphia happy, just to keep playing in the city that he likes. He's the only one who seems to have trusted the process this whole time through and through. And what good has that gotten him? An MVP and then, not much else to show for it. So there's got to be a point where Joel Embiid hits his breaking point as well. James Harden, obviously already there. I think it's fair to just expect Harden not to be in a Sixers uniform this year. I
Or he's gonna be
didn't
looking
even,
big, like he just came
yeah,
from, just from 8 Philly cheesesteaks. That's what Harden's gonna show up looking like.
yeah. We might see Fat Harden
I
again,
would
and
love it. I would love it. We need it.
I mean, hey, he might be on his way there. With
Well, Maury said he is unmoved by James Harden's comments. So that's where we're at. We're at James Harden doing what
Yeah,
he
we didn't
did.
even really say that. He just straight up called Daryl Morey a liar, and he'll never play for a team that he's a part of again. In
To a
front of
bunch
a
of
massive,
kids.
in front of a massive crowd of kids in China.
Those kids had they're like, what the fuck's happening right now?
Yeah, they're like, who the hell is Daryl Morey? Probably
And
don't even know that name over there, man. Obviously he's a star. I mean, he's killing it, but it's just tough. It really, from all three parties, it kind of seems like none of them really have much of a leg to stand on in this
Nope.
like three-way argument. I think Embiid obviously has the most
Yeah.
the most
He's
right
the most
to be
collateral
upset.
damage of
Yeah.
the situation, I feel like.
But he also might be getting screwed the most. So it's like, it doesn't even matter if Embiid's upset, and doesn't matter what he's saying unless change happens. Probably not. The last thing I'll say is I hadn't thought about Nick Nurse at all, but that's an interesting point. Like, I forget. I think someone made his first press conference. Someone asked him a question about James Harden. He was even weird answering questions then because he could probably see the writing on the wall. I'm sure he doesn't want to coach James Harden after these comments either. So it's tough. Kendrick Perkins was the most recent to speak out about it on TV that I heard, and he says James Harden could be out of the league if he's not careful in this situation, which I don't think, unless it's we all of a sudden rewind or fast forward 2 years from now, I don't think James Harden will be out of the league, but I don't think he's completely wrong in the sense that
And he's burning a lot of bridges.
Yeah, and he's probably already screwed. Like, he's not getting a max deal this year, man. He's not getting that from anyone. I don't think many teams, the teams that will go out and try to bring him in, don't have the money for it. And then the teams that have the money for it, I don't think they're going after a 33-year-old James Harden who, he's been outstanding. He's had MVP seasons. He's had seasons where he's led the league in assists. He's a unbelievable bucket getter. But when push comes to shove, he has not showed us that he can do anything at the highest level in the playoffs. He had a few good games against Boston, obviously monster games, but then followed it up with some of his worst he's ever played, and that's kind of the James Harden experience. So we'll see. James Harden's probably wishing he was one of these two guys that we're about to talk about, who got massive contract extensions since we've recorded last. And start with my guy, Jaylen Brown. JB signs a 5-year, $304 million contract extension with the Boston Celtics, largest in NBA history. Everyone has seemingly had their own opinions about this. Obviously, I'm sure the listeners out there know where I stand. This was my number one priority for the Celtics, just to get JB to stay. It didn't have to be the largest deal in NBA history, but that's just a cherry on top for me. So you know where I'm at. Jake, I know we're, probably a month out since this happened, but how are you thinking about it when it first happened, and what are your thoughts on it now?
The sticker shock is one thing if you weren't expecting it to be that number, but I feel like we were expecting it to be that number, just knowing what the Supermax price was at this point and coming into this year. And just, that was kind of the whole question, I feel like. And maybe that was what the more interesting thing is, that it was only announced a month ago and not announced right on July 1st when it could have been. And I wonder what went into those negotiations. If Brad Stevens tried to get Jaylen Brown and his team to take a little less than the max just to see like just in how much they negotiate, because 62 million a year is still a lot. I can see them, trying to get some wiggle room and everything, but ultimately they did exactly what you said. It was priority number one to keep him around, whether it's to keep him around or whether it's to move him in a year. Anyways, you still need to keep that guy around and have that the here and see where it goes. And I don't think that's going to happen. But regardless, the point is that you got to lock these guys up. And free agency is really not a thing anymore. If you haven't noticed, it's all these guys locking into trades and then demanding their trades.
Yeah.
And so it's just a smart move on both sides. Jaylen deserves all the money, and the Celtics need Jaylen to be a contender this year, and Tatum needs Jaylen to be at his best. And I still think we haven't seen the full potential of those guys. I think we'll get it. We're going to get a lot of make or break with these two this year with the changes that have occurred over the last year, specifically with Smart and everything else, and all the way they talked about his role on the team. Like they're going to take a lot more just on them. I would assume day to day at practice, in the locker room, all that stuff. And so they need those two guys, and they needed to make a statement about it. So I'm happy it got done. The Anthony Davis extension is the one that puzzled me a little bit. Now, this is the highest annual salary ever. I think it's $62.5 million. It's a 3-year extension. I just don't think he's making it 3 years. And so if we're talking about what's worth it here, I think the Jaylen one's worth it. Excuse me. Just because of the flexibility it offers you. With Davis and where Bron is in his career, this feels like he's getting traded before this deal is up.
Yeah.
And it's like we're getting you to go with LeBron for sure. And then once Bron leaves, you're gone.
Yeah, it kind of seems that way, right? Because Davis, 30 years old right now, that would put him at 33 at the end of the contract. You would have to assume, I mean, LeBron's definitely going to be off the Lakers in 3 years. Maybe he's playing Jordan on the Wizards role wherever Bronny's at in 3 years, or he's out of the league, presumably. I think the latter is probably more likely on that one. But yeah, it is strange because, and maybe the money will have shifted so much by the end of the 3 years that it won't seem that crazy. But I mean, say it's even after this season and the injury is about the same for Davis. So he's pretty banged up throughout the year, misses a quarter of the season again. He's 31 years old. There will be teams, there will be a market for him, but it's interesting to think about who's trading for a 31-year-old Anthony Davis getting $60 million a year for the next 2 years. Like I said, I think someone will, but I don't know if it's as easy as the Lakers think it might be, if that is their plan with this contract.
I don't know what they're planning. I think they just wanted to pay him, but it's also this wondering what the flexibility is. And Bron, who knows with LeBron James at this point, like what's going to happen with him. But the 80th one, I just don't know. Until he can be healthy, I'd rather take Jaylen Brown's lack of left hand than AD's lack of health. I think at this point, when you're looking at these kind of investments, and I think you have to look carefully. I don't know if every guy automatically should get the max with the way the cap works now. With the way that hard cap, not hard cap, but hard cap could work, and you cancel teams out. There is going to be a team that just decides like, we're not paying you this and we're going to just trade you instead. And that will be the smarter decision than paying you. Like there's going to be a team that decides that and is going to be right. And so with these are the first 2 deals, being made at this kind of, with the way the cap is set now and just being the scale that they are at, it's really interesting to see like kind of how it plays out, especially for these 2 teams who are clearly trying to win the NBA title like this year. They're going to be 2 top 5 favorites probably going into the season. The Lakers, whether that's by merit or just the fact that it's popularity, they're still probably going to be within that discussion the whole time. The Celtics, obviously. So it's going to be interesting. They're either going to win a title or they're going to crash and burn terribly. I feel like that's the only 2 options.
No, that's such a good point though about the contracts, and it will happen. Like you're absolutely right that there's gonna come a time and a player who is gonna be the first one to get slighted out of his supermax deal, but
And maybe it's
hopefully,
James Harden. Maybe
yeah,
that's it playing out right now. Is Maury's like, listen, bro, I'm not double capping us right to pay you 60 million.
yeah, and it's gonna be tough because if it is someone like obviously as a Celtics fan, I think the Celtics could justify doing it to Jaylen Brown, and I think the reason for that is because you trade a guy like Jaylen Brown right now, after the season he just had, his age, him leveling up every year he's been in the NBA, you're not getting something equivalent in return. So you might as well just pay him, and it keeps the player happy. Both sides win in that. But it is interesting if we get, a player down the road. And there is another situation where a team has a Jaylen Brown type and a Jason Tatum type. And, it just works out where they'd rather keep the Jason Tatum type and they can get a better package in return for their player B. But he's going to miss out on that Supermax money. It's going to be very interesting because this next year and a half, 2 years for the NBA will be very telling for how this cap situation works and how teams are able to move their money around and players around to stay in championship windows and not just be relevant. So, yeah, I'm with you. Obviously, I can justify the Jaylen Brown deal. 9 times out of 10 when I'm sleeping backwards, whatever. I can justify this deal. I do struggle a little more with the AD one, but like you said, maybe they're just giving AD money that
They also
thought he
don't really have a
deserved.
choice, too.
Yeah,
Like they're not finding another star. It's LeBron and AD or nothing else, really. So hey,
yeah.
we'll see what happens.
So,
I think the Jaylen deal. I think that's going to be fine. I really do. And Tatum's is going to be 70 million when it happens next time. So
yeah,
maybe more. So just get used to the stickers. People like it's NBA players are soccer players now. Like those are the numbers we're going to be looking at.
Yeah, it is. It is funny that you mentioned it at the top when we first started talking about this, but like me and you, we expected this number to come in. Other people who are shocked, it's like this is NBA money now. This is all NBA players. This is what they're going to be getting paid for the foreseeable
future. And that was a
future.
wake up call for me to remember how in it we are. Like just to know that like I've known that number, like had 60 million like in my head since the Jaylen Brown discussions have started the beginning of the year. But for a person who's not following the NBA day to day, and then they see Jaylen Brown, especially when people see it, Jaylen Brown, not Jason Tatum, getting paid 60 million.
And
they're like, what the hell is going? Yeah, it's just like I can see why it's a big sticker shock for people, but this is just the price of doing business now. You better pony up if you're an NBA owner. We ain't got time to play around. That's 60 mil. That's the going rate. He'd be getting paid more if it was open market. I tell you that.
Yeah,
all these guys would
for sure. And I will say to anyone listening out there who is confused about this type of stuff and still is and still will be going forward, I encourage you to, you might have to look forward a little bit, but to follow us first and foremost on X and Instagram and TikTok if you aren't already. But find a NBA insider who is all about finances. I know Keith Smith is a guy that I follow closely. Yes. He's started specifically Celtics, but now I think he does breaks down finance stuff across the NBA. So just find a guy like that, whether he's in your market or covers the NBA as a whole. And it's actually a bit easier to understand when you're reading tweets daily from guys like that. And it will help you understand contracts for the future and contracts that your teams might currently have open.
Yeah, for sure.
So go ahead and do that. And we are now going to discuss Damian Lillard, the man who got slapped on the wrist for saying that he will not play anywhere else except Miami. He thought he was trying to force a trade in 2K, found out you can't do that in real life. Damian Lillard. I'll just ask you the same question on all of these, Jake. Where are we at with Dame Lillard?
I think he's in Miami by opening night. I mean, I
Mhm.
just don't. I don't see why you would want to keep him around at this point. I mean, clearly there's not a trade market getting drummed up for him right now, and so you can hold him on. I guess if Portland really wants to be weird and hold on to him, and he doesn't do any, even like he shouldn't be playing on this roster next year with the way they have it, with the guys that they
No.
have on it right now. There's like it's just hurting your young stars, and I would just give the keys to Scoot and Shaden Sharp anyways, and Simons, and just let them go. You don't want him taking up. They made their decision already. So sorry,
Yeah.
Portland. Like you lost your leverage. You can try to get your leverage back, but everybody in the NBA knows that Damian Lillard is a ticking time bomb to be traded because you're not trading Scoot. Are you going to trade Scoot then? Because that whatever team, if you call on, I don't know who the GM's name is, Portland, but if I called him up right now, the players I'm asking about, is Dame available? Oh no. Okay. Is Scoot available? No. Then what are we doing here? Like that's really the only two questions you have to ask them at this point. So I just don't see how he's on that roster, and they better just get used to start printing those Tyler Hero jerseys out. Like that's what I think. It's not gonna be a great trade, and that might just be the price for superstars nowadays. Overpriced superstars is not great trades. The Beal trade was not a good trade, but
No. They
Phoenix
did it.
took on the deal and the contract and everything that came with it. Miami will be assuming a huge cap number if they take on Dame and are paying Jimmy Butler and are paying Bam. So that's the price of doing business now. It's not going to be as great of a trade as Rudy Gobert got. That's not NBA trades anymore. I don't think, at least superstar trades. I don't think
No.
I don't think you can pull it off. And so I think Portland's just going to have to swallow their pill. They lost their leverage the second they selected Scoot Henderson in that draft.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like Miami too, it's good that in this situation Portland lost their leverage, but like also what you were just talking about, like Miami still has a hard decision to make, even if they can get Portland to bite on whatever trade package they put together for Dame. Because like you just said, even when he gets there, it's like, okay, now make the money work with what you have. Like we were just talking about all these other teams. It's like that's gonna be the issue going forward for all teams. Like we just talked about, like the Jaylen Brown contracts, like the Anthony Davis contracts. You have to balance your money much more than you ever had to in the past before. So if you're the Heat and Dame keeps saying how much he wants to go play in Miami, management and leadership roles, they better be sure
Yeah,
that Dame is their guy.
yeah,
And Jimmy Butler, getting up there in age, Dame, right around the same age as James Harden. I think he's 33 as well, or 31, 32.
yeah.
I mean, both guys are well into their 30s now. You have Bam, who we keep like begging to make this step at the next level in the playoffs, and he doesn't seem to be. So yes, I think Portland has himself in a weird spot. But also, Miami better be sure if this is something they go after, because I mean, if this big three doesn't work out, if they somehow put together Bam, Jimmy, and Dame, that rebuild is going to be ugly for years to come if they can't get anything out of this big three.
You're right. It's not, but they don't really have any other options because I think they're screwed.
No,
And what other superstar are they getting for Tyler Hero and whatever other package? Like I don't. This just feels like a match to win, and they feels like they could. That's a team that can be in that group with Boston and Milwaukee if Damian Lillard's there next year, and he's 33. It's going to be interesting. Maybe it unlocks Bam Lillard, and that's the best case scenario. But we'll see what happens. But let's talk about your Celtics, because you didn't
yes,
have great news the other day with Kristaps. Where did he just announce it himself? How did this got announced? Kristaps Porzingis with plantar fasciitis. He's out. Should be ready in about 4 to 6 weeks, but not the start to the 10-year that you were hoping for, I'm sure.
no. So I believe this came out because it technically was from him, I guess, or his camp, because he announced that he wasn't playing in FIBA. So he's not competing for his country. And then that led to, okay, well, what's wrong? And then I think exams were done. They found out it is plantar fasciitis. And yeah, that was just the report yesterday. So, I mean, any NBA player, especially a big man, foot injuries, specifically plantar fasciitis, it's bad. It's never good news. I think Braun was dealing with this last year. It's a horrible situation. It's a horrible injury to have if you're an NBA player. Like I said, a lot more serious if you're a big man usually. And Kristaps, standing at 7'3", newest member of the Boston Celtics, you don't love to hear or see this news. Thankfully, today we got some clarification that we got a timetable at least, because it was complete panic for everyone in the wild streets of Celtics fandom. But yeah, we got the report today. 4 to 6 weeks should be good by the start of training camp. So yeah, I guess just rest up for Kristaps. But this is the risk that Brad Stevens and the Celtics made, right? You send out your pretty much most durable player next to Tatum in Marcus Smart. A lot of people consider the heart and soul. I've already gone through the sob story about me missing Marcus Smart, but this is the gamble that Brad made, and Kristaps already injured before the season is even close to starting. It's never great news, but I guess it always could be worse. 4 to 6 weeks, we can deal with it. I'm fine with him not playing FIBA at all. I would love for him just to be fresh and ready to go for the Celtics selfishly, but we did see this last summer with Gallinari, who we thought would be a great bench piece to our championship roster that we already had, and he tore his ACL playing for Italy. And it was a freak thing, and it was a big hit before the season had even started. I think a lot of Celtics fans were worried that this was going to be something similar. Thankfully, like I said, we have a timetable. It shouldn't be anything big, a little over a month maybe. But yeah, it's just the gamble that Brad took, and we have to be ready to roll with the punches and Kristaps Porzingis.
Yeah, at least it happened now, I guess, right?
Yeah.
You'd rather have it happen now than in the season. Plantar fasciitis, it's really bad for planting, which is why for a big man, you're doing drop steps all the time and jumping up and down for rebounds. Horrible for that. It's really bad for wide receivers in football and running backs, because you have to, obviously you're planting on routes and cuts and everything. So yeah, that's the biggest thing it'll affect plantar fasciitis. If you're just kind of the way the tear is, it really hurts to just like, you can walk on it, but when you really like press on it, it just shoots like almost like a nail, like into the bottom of your foot. So pretty painful. Rest up, Kristaps. But glad he's not going to be on the court for Team USA, because I don't know, man. I like that. I like the way the team looks. Maybe this is just the Anthony Edwards coming out party. But
I think it is.
I feel like the rest. This is going to be a really good tournament, though. I feel like this is going to be a very, very well played, close played tournament. I wish Giannis was in it. That was disappointing. But yeah. I mean, we'll see. Like, did you get to watch Sunday at all? We were talking about watching.
Outside of highlights, no.
Yeah.
I did see some great highlights from both Mikal Bridges and Jaylen Brunson, which got me hyped.
In the first half, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say everything I saw seemed to be that Jaylen Brunson set the tone, which was I'm sure that was awesome for Knicks fans. And then just we're all Team USA basketball fans in the summertime when FIBA's going on, so it's cool that you get to root for these young players that maybe on a rival team of yours or on a team that you would just never pay attention to. And you mentioned him, man, Anthony Edwards. Everything I'm hearing from Team USA is just all about the Anthony Edwards hype train. It's, this guy could be a second team All NBA player next year. His defense is getting better. Every video I'm seeing, he's the only one like talking at it reminds me of Kobe and just like old practice clips, not just Team USA clips in general, but like just his old Lakers practice clips. And then obviously with Team USA as well. But just the energy, he seems to be taking on a leadership role, which if you're a Team USA fan, is great, and probably even more encouraging if you're a Timberwolves fan as well.
True. He was chirping Jaren Jackson Jr. today,
Yeah, I saw
yelling at
that.
him. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
what
what
do you
you love
say?
to see.
He didn't jump when Ant dunked, and he said jump. Like I thought you were supposed to be defensive player of the year,
Yeah.
something
It
like
was a pretty
that.
weak move. I wouldn't jump in practice either, but it
No,
was a soft move by Triple J there. But Ant has definitely been the bulldog heart and soul, it seems like so far. And then just also the fact that he wasn't in the starting lineup and Kerr was just like, damn, like I have to put him in. And now
yeah,
he's just he's doing whatever they need to do. He's having some big scoring nights. Some nights he doesn't really shoot that much, but he's just very active. He's a very good FIBA defensive player too, because he could be a little bit more physical, and he can just he's just been really good. Looked really good on the perimeter. Reeves looked really good defensively. He
I
had a
was gonna
couple good
say that was
steals
something
and a
I
couple good
noticed.
outlets and everything. So I bet Reeves is gonna have a nice role on this team. I don't know, and that's what I'm interested to see too, is like what the rotation ends up being, because it's a pretty solid group all the way through. Obviously, Brunson is going to be I think he's going to be the focal point there, whatever. We saw some Banchero at the 5. That was interesting to see. I don't know if he's going to be able to hold up at the 5 in like a big game against, they're playing France, and I don't think Banchero can be out there against
Yeah, you
Rudy
might
or
have to
anything
throw
like that.
Walker Kessler in
Yeah,
that one.
exactly. And there's some bigs that he would have trouble with, but just they have a lot more versatility, and just it's like you said, it's a fun young group to see together, see what Brandon Ingram can do if he can have some big performances. But Edwards is really what I'm looking forward to the most. So hopefully he goes and balls out, and hopefully we go get a gold medal going into the Olympics.
Yeah, man, it's I love that you brought up Austin Reeves. I did not know he had a defensive game like that, man. A lot of the
There was a
highlights.
sequence, yeah. There was a great sequence in it was a 3 back-to-back possessions where he got a steal, poked a steal, and then they got a bucket, and then they came out, and then he picked off a lazy out, lazy.
Yeah, it looked like he intercepted like a pass in the end zone.
Yeah,
I think I know
exactly. He
which play you're
grabbed it, and then
talking
he
about.
comes down and gives a nice little cut to Cam Johnson, and Cam Johnson comes through. It was just he's just making good plays, and it's great to see him doing that just continuously with those guys and everything. It's just they got a squad. They've got a good, solid team there. I'm just interested to see if they get into a close game. There's not that there aren't guys that I trust, but who's going to be taking shots, who's going to get the ball, and
Yes.
are they going to make those shots in that moment? Because it could. I see Brunson probably being the one having it. I see Ant wanting to do it, and Ingram I feel like is the guy that should have it, but I don't know if he's going to
Yes.
have it. So
It's probably the least vocal, or at least that's how it comes off. I'm not at
exactly.
practices.
I feel like Brunson's going to have the ball in his hand in every important moment for Team USA this whole tournament.
If you're going up against a sizable squad, who knows if you want that, but that might be the case. I did see something interesting. Speaking of, who's going to be that guy to take the shot, and someone who apparently is upset that they're not on the team would be perfect for this role. And I didn't even know. Shout out the Pat Bev with Rowan show, because I didn't know this was a controversy until I heard it on their show talking Team USA. Apparently, Trae Young is upset that he is not a part of this Team USA squad.
Because nobody likes it, bro.
And he would be a perfect guy to be taking the last shot.
I know, but nobody likes him. That he's getting the Isaiah Thomas treatment from the Team USA.
I know.
The boys don't want him there.
And that, I think that probably explains it the best, right? Because otherwise, I mean, going down this roster, man, I think if you could stop me 5 different times.
Would Trae be willing to sit behind Jaylen Brunson? I bet you he wouldn't. And I think that was.
And it's got to be Josh Hart. It's got to be Josh Hart and Brunson who dislike him the most on this squad. Sure. You would assume.
I'm sure, and I would rather have Brunson just in a leader role and everything else. If you're Steve Kerr, I could see why you'd rather have Brunson in that role. I don't know if Trae would have accepted. And then if Trae is coming off the bench, what's he really doing? You can only bring him out to shoot,
to go on little offensive.
He can't play defense against and especially when he can't draw charges really, because they're not gonna That's the best part about watching Team USA start playing FIBA rules. Is it takes them like 4 games to realize that they can't just like throw their arms up and get a call every time they go in.
Yeah.
That might be the biggest reason Trey didn't get invited, because you get no foul calls. I don't know.
And just I love watching every year, just like the rules, like with like goaltending and like
That's
the
the
touching
best.
around the rim and stuff. It's like everyone's just looking up at the hoop like the
Bro,
first couple times it happens. And
I
then,
wish that was a real basketball rule. That
oh
is like
yeah,
my
man, it is
favorite
kind of
rule.
awesome.
It
just
makes so
adds a
much
little
sense. If you
more-
miss the shot, get that shit out of there. We don't want it. We
Yeah.
don't want that up here anymore. I love it.
Yeah, it just adds a little more flair and like fun chaos to the game. And it's like, you guys are that athletic anyway. You can be making plays like this every single shot. So it's like,
And it opens the game up, because then
yes,
you get more fast breaks out of it. Like and you get more forwards pushing the ball. That's the big thing about FIBA too, because those guys can just pick that shit up right off the top of the rim. They don't have to stand and wait around, and then they're moving.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. I think with this squad, it is interesting the way they put it together. But I'm literally just looking at a picture of them, like the main Team USA photo right now.
Yeah.
And outside, I think the only outliers really are Walker Kessler, Bobby Portis, and Jaylen Brunson. Because otherwise, all of like their dynamic players, they just put together like long forward guard hybrids that are all willing to play defense, because even Halliburton is a big
He's
point
huge,
guard.
yeah.
And he doesn't shy. Like, he's not this great defender who you would, put at the top of your list and on ball defenders or anything. But I even saw clips of him like getting out and getting steals in transition. And then, like, you have guys like Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Brandon Ingram, who we already talked about. Ben Caro is like this weird hybrid type. So I think, and Jaylen Brunson, you mentioned, like, he's just a dog. So, like, he fits that mold, even though he's undersized. And, like, we talked about it with Trae Young, who doesn't really play defense. Brunson's like a different animal. And Josh Hart, like, who would have thought this guy would be on Team USA? But he does a little bit of everything.
Dog. Yeah.
And so that's probably it just seems – if we're not going to get the LeBrons, if we're not going to get the KDs to play on this team, it's like, let's put these guys together who do a little bit of everything, but are also crazy skilled.
Facts. Yeah, it's crazy to me that last year, if you would have asked me, if I looked at this roster and told you that the person I trust implicitly, no doubt in my mind, is Jaylen Brunson, I would have laughed at you. But there's nobody. I would rather have Jaylen Brunson in charge of this team than anybody else that's on this team. He seems perfect for it, and it's crazy how far he's come. But yeah, like, it's like you said, they really they put him in there because he's a dog. They put Portis and Kessler in there just for some extra size if they need it, and then we're just like, we're going after a type. I guess Jaren Jackson's just huge too. He's a pretty big. He's a pretty big
but he's
feller,
like,
but he's also like a long, lanky guy who can shoot and like.
Yeah, he's never been shy to bring the ball up. Like, I think he would play from the outside.
And I think he came into the league at like 6'9". I think he grew 2 inches too.
Yeah,
I honestly think he was like I feel like he was someone that I remember coming in and was like, damn, like he's like not at like, he was like 6'9" or barely 6'10", but super long arms. And now his like height always says 6'11", 7 foot. So I think he's a freak. Like, if that dude that's the thing. Like, that's why it should be yelling at him. Because if this guy just puts everything together, and maybe it's a Memphis thing, as we've learned about the culture in Memphis. But if this dude puts everything together, he should be everything that we talk about Bam being, and should do it 100 times. He should do it at least 3 times better, because he's 3 inches taller than him. Yeah. Like, realistically, maybe he doesn't have the basketball IQ that Bam has, and I can't speak to that as much as the X's and O's people have. But I feel like Bam is pretty untouchable in that category.
And what we should come back to is Jaren Jackson Jr. in this discussion that we just had after a few months into the NBA season with his new defensive leader on that squad.
It's true.
Let's see if Marcus Smart,
and he's going to be the number 1 guy on that team too for 2 months,
so let's see if Marcus Smart can't whip Jaren Jackson Jr. into shape. That's going to be a pretty interesting thing to watch unfold with those two DPOYs together.
I will be watching every Memphis Grizzly game on TV this year, I think.
For multiple reasons, man.
Yes, for a lot
They
of
have
reasons.
a little bit of everything going on there.
Yeah. It's just the right amount, just the, sugar, spice, everything nice. They got it all. It's gonna be a fun season. Got anything else here? I think we're good. We got Team USA, I think is the 20. Can't remember the exact date. I know it starts in the 20s though. So we're wrapping and coming around the corner here, and then before you know it, it'll be training camp and it'll be opening night, which we know opening night is Lake Nuggets and
Suns. Now.
I can't remember. I think it's Nuggets, Lakers, and Warriors, Suns, I believe.
Let me check.
I know that we have a Celtics, Lakers Christmas Day, which would be nice. I'm sure you wish it was in Boston and not LA, but I don't know. I think the last time it was in LA too, actually. But
yeah, I think it's Nuggets, Lakers, and
then Suns at Warriors.
Yes. Yeah, so Chris Paul revenge game, and then a rematch of the sweeping that happened in the Western Conference Finals. Yeah. Last thing I had, just because I completely forgot until you said anything else, and this is where my brain went here at the end of the episode and not before, but the in-season tournament, it's officially happening in the NBA. The Celtics team posted a quick Instagram post, and it kind of helped me understand. So I'll just read this to the audience now before we log off here. So the in-season tournament for 2023, all 30 teams, excuse me, all 30 teams divided into 6 groups of 5 teams. Groups are determined by draw based on prior season's regular season record. Tournament nights will take place every Tuesday and Friday from November 3rd to the 28th. So this tournament is in the middle of November. Each team is play the 4 teams in its group once, 2 home games, 2 away. All tournament games will count towards the regular season standings except the championship. 3 group winners and 1 wild card per conference will qualify for the tournament. And then this is the what's at stake. Teams will be competing for the all-new NBA Cup. At the conclusion of the tournament, the NBA will name the most valuable player of the in-season tournament and the all-tournament team. The prize pool will be allocated to the players of the teams that participate in the knockout rounds. Games begin November 3rd. Semis and championship will be December 7th through the 9th in Las Vegas. So there you go. That was a little in-season tournament. I still don't know how I feel about it. I think it happened pretty fast. It's kind of been tough to form an opinion on it just because of how quickly it was put together last season, and then they're just running with it now. I could do without it, but I might change my mind when it starts being played. Yeah, we'll see.
I have literally no expectations for it because if it's early, it can't get worse than early season, regular season basketball anyways, than some of the efforts that we see from these teams. So if it's really we're starting at that baseline level of these teams load managing and taking half their nights off and whatever else they decide to do before they make all their trades after Christmas.
Yeah.
And if it makes them incentivized to do it, because, at least some of these guys are going to want $1 million or whatever the prize there at the end.
Right.
Hey, by all means, maybe it'll help. I don't know. It's going to be weird. It's going to be really weird to see how they try to make it a big deal.
Yeah. Let's hope we just get a little more competitive.
It'll be sick in Vegas. I think the semifinals will feel like it's worth it, but it's going to be as we're getting there, we're going to be what is this? What are we doing?
The beginning of November,
they're gonna ask the players about does it matter, how does it feel to be playing in your first NBA Cup game? And they're gonna be like,
those interviews aren't gonna matter until the championship.
And people are gonna get mad about it too. That's the thing, is people are gonna be like, oh, these players don't care, they're not taking it seriously. We're gonna have to deal with that shit until we get to the final, and then everybody can be like, oh, I guess it was X, Y, and Z happened, and this is kind of cool here, and
I can't wait for the 2-minute close up, the first 2-minute close up of Stephen A. Smith just going off about how the in-season tournament doesn't matter at all, and these guys aren't taking it seriously. And I can't wait for that because you know it's coming at some point. All right, I think that'll do it for our very long-awaited episode.
We're back.
Expect us through the end of the summer and then up until the season starting. And hopefully Steve will be on next episode. Follow Trainwreck Sports everywhere. Go check them out if you're listening from the Buffalo area. I know Jake has been grinding for this Bills upcoming season. All the Buffalo guys are hyped for the Bills. Go follow Trainwreck Sports. Follow Pay the Bills podcast. If you want to plug that too. Follow both of us. Follow at Happy Hour Hoops 1 on all social. And stay tuned in with NBA's right around the corner, folks. And maybe James Harden will show up fat to training camp.
Please.
Later, guys.
That's all we could ask for.